I am not the ultimate fisherman, but I'm getting there. The original point of fishing was to go out and obtain food. So to become the ultimate fisherman, one would assume that you need to know how to eat your catch. You need to know what fish are edible, how to prepare them. And that's my way of making an excuse to do catch and cooks, one of the most popular fishing video formats on this platform. But if I'm going to do catch and cooks, I'm not going to be doing the usual cornmeal and blackened. We're not doing any of that. They've been eating fish all around the world for generations. There are so many different ways that you can eat a quality piece of fish. Today, I'm going to be doing Tod Man Pla, Thai fish cakes. It's very popular as a street food or an appetizer. The fish this is usually made with is of course a fish from Thailand, so I don't have one. So instead we're going to settle for catfish. A fishing buddy of mine named Sam is actually from Thailand, and so he's the one who introduced me to this. He actually brought Tod Man Mu, which is the same thing but made with ground up pork instead of fish, and it was absolutely delicious. So I got the recipe from him and we're going to run through that today. So of course the first step, we have to catch a fish. We actually had a lot of rain come through yesterday, so the river right now is completely washed out, just raging, and I'm absolutely not going to fight that current in my kayak. So we're out here on Otaga Creek instead. Water's up a little high, it's moving a little fast, but not near as bad as what the river would be right now. So since we're in a little creek, it's going to limit our species to channel cat. An easy way to locate catfish, especially in bodies of water that have current to them, such as rivers or creeks, is to target the bends in the system. As the creeks and rivers turn, what it's doing is it's actually digging out a hole at the area that it's turning at. All the current is beating up against that bank right there, and so over years it's been slowly digging that little area out. So where the rest of this creek averages around 6 feet deep, you get a little bit deeper hole around 10 feet or so over in these little river bends. On top of that, this is where a lot of your limbs and debris end up getting dropped off, because as they get swung in by the current, they get hung on everything and they just sit right here. It also creates, I don't know if y'all can see, creates these little eddies on the outer side where the water that's in that deeper section isn't moving near as fast compared to this water in the shallow area that's kind of zipping by. So you end up with this little spot where the current just kind of spins in this little hole called an eddy. So the catfish prefer these areas because with all the debris that's getting dropped off, they have a lot of structure they can hide inside of. On top of that, this little slower section of water, the eddy, ends up creating a little haven so that they don't have to sit out here on a treadmill all day long. They can hang out in there and rest, and also wait for bait to be brought to them, because bait's going to shoot out of the current into that eddy and going to hang out over there as well. So if you want to catch catfish, your best bet is to find spots like this and just chuck your bait over there to them. Speaking of bait, we're going to be using some leftover shrimp that's been sitting in my freezer for way too long. I planned on waiting to use shrimp for, you know, a saltwater video, but when I went to go grab the leftover hot dog or two that was supposed to be in the fridge, it turns out that the wife had tossed them out. So another lesson is to let your wife know what's actually bait and not stuff to be thrown away. Now, we're wanting today is eater-sized catfish, so we're not going for giant trophy-sized fish here. We're wanting small, under 5 pounds for me personally, for eater sizes. So we're using lighter tackle today. We got 10-pound braid main line going to a little swivel, and then we have 6-pound test leader line. This one I have rigged up into a dropper rig. We got one surgeon loop right in the middle and a small circle hook, I think maybe a 2/0, 1/0, 2/0 on the end of it. And then down below that we actually have our sinker. I think this is just a 1/4 ounce sinker, maybe a half, not very heavy. just enough to sit on the bottom. If we're throwing it into this eddy over here, it's not going to need that much weight to sit still anyway. Also, it's a pretty muddy bottom, so if anything sinks really fast and hits it, it kind of just gets stuck down in there anyway. And on this rig, we're going a little overkill actually, but it was just what was already rigged up. On this one, it's 80-pound mainline braid, which is completely unnecessary for what we're doing in here today, but it already had a Carolina rig on it, so we're just going to use it. We got a, good lord, it's a 4-ounce sinker. Anyway, we got a 4-ounce sinker and a bead to protect my knot as it goes to my swivel. And then underneath that we have, I believe this is 30-pound mono. Again, ridiculous. With a 30-pound mono going down to a snailed circle hook. This one's probably approaching the 6/0 range. Yeah, ain't nothing getting away. I will not be spooled today. Thread that. I'm gonna thread it through the shell so it's got a little bit more grip than just that soft shrimp to hold on to. And it looks like we might already have a bite. We do. Dang, I didn't even get both lines in the water. What size? Little guy. Coming straight at me. Yep, and that is the size that we're looking for. Nothing big, nothing fancy, just a little catfish. Ooh. Welcome to the kayak. And that right there is the size that I'm going for. Pretty small little catfish, probably ain't nothing but a pound. Actually, you know, we'll weigh him. There you go, under 1.5 pounds. This little channel cat. I don't like for them to get too big for eating, because to me, once you go past the 5-pound mark, they're just too big to be eaten on. They just don't taste as good. When catfish get big, it's because they've been living in this water for a long time, and so a lot of your bigger catfish end up picking up all that nasty stuff that's inside the water, and so you end up with your bigger catfish taste more like mud or tasting like the river, and well, that's why he's too big. Don't get them that big. Now we have fish, but we're not going to do anything with that yet. Right now, we need to actually work on the dipping sauce. Now, what we're going to make is a sweet chili sauce to dip our Thai fish cakes in. You can very easily go to the store and just buy a bottle off the shelf, and it will be completely fine. But that would make for a shorter video, so we're not going to do that. So into a pan, we're going to drop 1/3 cup of vinegar, white vinegar, 1/2 cup of sugar, lot of sugar. I'm using 4 cloves of garlic, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And now the chili to go in this chili sauce. As you would expect, it's supposed to be a Thai chili. Prick chi fa or a red spur chili would really do the trick. Sam told me he actually uses cayenne peppers for this, but number one, it is Alabama, so prick chi fa is not readily available. And number two, it's January, so ripe red peppers are not really a thing right now. So my sauce is going to be the wrong color altogether. We're doing green serrano. Serrano is a little bit lower on the Scoville chart than prick chi fa. So to make up for that, I'm using 3 of them in here all chopped up. It's probably a little too much for this sauce. I mean, I guess we're going to find out. So we're going to give that a little bit of heat and bring it up to a nice simmer. We'll mix this sugar and salt in a little bit better. We're going to bring this up to a simmer and really dissolve that sugar and salt. Let it tender up my produce a little bit. And in the meantime, we'll start on the fish. Now, traditionally, this dish is made with the clown featherback fish. It's a Thai fish that does not exist here. But the trick is that you can substitute with a tender whitefish. And so what I have here is the channel cat that we caught earlier. So hopefully this will do. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to make a fish paste. Now the old school method is that they would actually sit there and by hand mash these into a paste over the course of like 30 minutes or so, just pulverizing it. I'm lazy. We're going to do that. Now what I got here is about 6 to 7 ounces of fish fillet. That's going to be plenty for me. I'm the only one here right now, so I'm going to be the only one eating this. You can scale everything up as you need to. One of the main ingredients of this entire thing is red curry paste. This is what gives the dish its color. This is what gives the dish its spice levels. So if you want it spicier, add more. Less spice, don't put as much in there. I'm using about a tablespoon. We also got a half teaspoon of sugar in there to kind of play with that spice level a little bit. We're also going to throw in 1 egg yolk that I busted. And this is going to help tenderize our patty. And we're going to give this a good blend. And what you're looking for is something that kind of like holds its shape, so that way we can actually, you know, make a patty. You don't want it to be too runny. That's pretty springy. I'm satisfied with that. Sauce has been over here simmering for a minute. I think it's good enough that we can get to blending now. Ah, it's hot. Stop it. Hot. And now we've learned the lesson that we should have used a regular blender. Either way, a good chunky texture never hurt anybody. We're going to let this sit and cool down now. Back to the fish. We're going to take our freshly made fish paste and dump it over into a separate bowl. Another key ingredient to this thing is kaffir lime leaves. A kaffir lime is this weird lumpy looking lime, and as far as I can tell, the lime isn't actually the part that everybody uses from this tree. It's actually these leaves. They have an extremely strong lime citrus flavor to them, and so in this dish they serve the role of covering up the fishy taste or potential fishy taste of your meat. These are used in things like soups and stews, a lot like a bay leaf. You put it in and then you take it out at the end. But if you cut it extremely thin, when we fry these bad boys up, this will be completely digestible. That puts off a lot of lime smell. Good gracious. Into the bowl you go. And another, what I think is a fun element, is green beans. Fresh cut green beans. Traditionally, you would use a Chinese long bean. Again, Alabama, I don't have it. But fresh cut green beans should do the same trick. What these are going to do is serve as like a little crunch. We're going to have, you know, our nice kind of chewy patty going on, but then scattered around inside are these little crunchy surprises, which are the green bean pieces. And so now we got to give this a good old mix. And just fold everything right up in there. So to fry these bad boys, we're going to be using some peanut oil. We're approaching the 370 degree mark right now. So this stuff is mega sticky. So what you want to make sure of, take this off. What you want to make sure of is to have a bowl of water on hand, because what we're going to do is anything that touches this needs to be wet. I'm going to take this little tablespoon doohickey, wet my hand more, plop. And then we're going to form little patties. And then that patty is going to go into the drink. Once that thing starts to float to the top, we'll flip it over and then we'll pull it out. In the meantime, let's quickly shape some more. I think they look pretty swell. They certainly smell good. So while these drain for a minute, we're gonna focus on the dipping sauce. The sauce is good as it is, but there's a standard dressing that in Thailand they actually use with this. Primarily, it's the shallots and the cucumber. Sam says he doesn't really care much for the whole peanuts thing, but I'm gonna go with it anyway. These are crushed up roasted peanuts. So between that, some thinly cut shallots, some thinly cut cucumber, we're gonna take our sticky, spicy, sweet sauce, and we're just gonna let all that come together. Give it a nice mix and a stir. I'm thinking that my sauce is a tad chunkier than it's supposed to be. But that's fine. I have no problem scooping if necessary. And that is a finished product. So as you may have noticed, I ate a few of them off screen. I really couldn't help it. They smelled really good. And the fact is, they are really good. But I have to do the whole eat it on screen type thing. Anyway, so taking a bite of it by itself, it's got a nice crust on the outside of it for something that has no flour on it whatsoever. The first thing, the main thing that jumps out at me is definitely that lime leaf. That puts so much lime flavor into this. It completely eliminates any chance of fishiness coming out from this, so I don't care what fish you're using, that lime leaf is going to put some work in on it. Green bean comes out, nice little crunch every now and then. I probably should have used more curry paste. It's not that spicy, but I assume, or when we add this sauce to it, nice heaping spoonful. Like I said, my sauce was a little chunky. You're supposed to just be able to dip it and pull it out and let it drizzle off of it, but mine's a little chunky, so we're going to scoop it on there. So many flavors. You get hit with the sweetness of the sugar, you get hit with the spiciness of the peppers. That little bit of cucumber adds a little bit of coolness on top of that spice. The shallot comes in, plays a nice aromatic flavor. It's just, boy, that's good. That's so good. If I'm being honest, I don't know exactly what it is the peanuts are playing a role for in here. So in my opinion, you could probably do without the peanuts. I don't really feel like they're doing much besides like a texture thing maybe. That's good. Sam knows what he's doing. Good Lord. I highly recommend it. As I said, Tod Man Pla is usually made with that featherback clownfish from Thailand. But any fish with white flesh and a little bit of tenderness to them, boy, it'll get the job done. I'm gonna have to catch some more catfish. Good Lord. Anyway, so Tod Man Pla using channel catfish. That was our first catch and cook of this channel. I plan on doing more of these. I would like to try and do one a month if possible. All kinds of recipes I'm wanting to try, but in particular, nothing that has to do with southern fried fish. It's been done to death. I've had it my entire life. We don't have to use cornmeal to make fish taste good, and that's what I'm going to set out to show every time I do one of these. There's a ton of species I've never eaten before. There's a lot of dishes I've never tried before, but I love cooking, so very willing to experiment. My plate is empty, so I think that's about it for this video, but we will definitely be catching and eating something else soon. But until then, y'all have a good one. Now I have to clean this kitchen. Good Lord.